amplified.
Welcome, everybody, to the Amner Martinez podcast. My name is Amner Martinez, and the co-host, Kenji Nakata, that just recently changed his name because he hates his Mexican heritage.
Obviously, I don't hate my Mexican heritage. Fucking asshole. Why? It makes my name very long.
You changed it. You took it out.
Nobody uses it.
So practicality, that was your thing.
Yes. It's useless.
You could have been Alejandro Sanchez.
Pass. No, nobody calls me Alejandro, and nobody knows my maternal last name is Chavez.
Chavez.
Yeah.
But lately, you've been identifying more as a Japanese person. Like, that's more you than you've told me this.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say none of that shit. You're a liar. I don't know what on the podcast you start saying some bullshit, man.
It's true.
I said none of that.
You said.
Matter of fact, I think
I'm making you more Japanese. I'm making
you're making me. Yeah, you're making me identify as Japanese. Like itadakimasu.
But you did take out your like Spanish last name.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with identity. The thing is, nobody calls me Alejandro. Nobody knows my last name is Chavez. Everybody knows me as Kenji Nakata, which is partly my own doing, right? Because that's how I introduce myself as Kenji Nakata. So it's not that I identify as Japanese, but
you're aligning
sort
more
of,
with Japanese. Cool. What do you call it? Ethics.
I think it's mostly. I never feel that I fit in anywhere.
Mm-hmm. But it is an important conversation because you like when Japan was in the World Cup and they were cleaning, they were leaving it was all over the social media, like they were leaving the locker rooms like pristine, intact.
Right. That's real cool.
You were kind of proud about that. You were like, that's, and then they were cleaning they were cleaning.
Well, not because I'm
stadiums.
Japanese, but it's because that's a really cool part of their culture.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese culture, they're very, they're very considerate of others.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the whole thing is about being considerate of others.
Uh-huh.
Like what you do affects others, so you have to always act in the benefit of others and then you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's real. Like that's exactly how it is. Like in Japan.
And you want to be like that.
Yeah. I like that
saying.
shit. So if that's one of those things that I would love to adopt behavior.
So you align more. That's what I'm saying, and that's one of the conversations that this is part of like my embarking on this, exploring the conversation of identity. Like now if you say oh, I identify as this, now it's like bad. Like you want to align yourself more with.
I just want to pick and choose the best parts.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
Pretty much.
So our next guest, Samantha Mesa, she has a harder time. She's Irish, French, and Mexican heritage. And she said she's working on her Spanish, and we speak about that. But she's an anchor here for the local 5 channel news. And she gave us basically behind the scenes of her day, which starts at 2 a.m. And so by the time you and I are on our second dream, she's already up and going. And they made space for us. And it was very gracious for them to invite us. And
us.
Infinite Resources,
Mm-hmm.
Infinite Resources. So we went and spoke about recruiting and staffing, and and I think that's really awesome that they're doing that. She's not from Iowa, but she does have Iowa beginnings. I think like her great grandpa. Okay. Yeah,
oh, nice.
So we talked about all that, and the workplace and how it is to be a woman anchor. We spoke about that. So very thankful that Samantha Mesa came on and spoke about her career. She spent time. Well, actually, she's been in New York, which I asked her. She's been an anchor in New York and on the border. And
Did you hear that? I went.
what is that? What does that mean?
I don't know. I don't know, but that's gotta be the Mexican side. Oh. Okay, New York.
Yeah, New York, in Corpus Christi, in Texas, on the border. And she was in Tunisia during the maybe a week or two before the Arab Spring, took place back in 2010. And she speaks about that. So she's been in the Middle East and big cities at the border, talking to people and, like reporting. And I was like, why Des Moines?
Why not?
Yeah. Why are you in Des Moines, Kenji? That's a question for you.
It's the circumstances.
The circumstances.
That's it. That's the answer.
Yeah,
circumstances.
The
circumstances put you
where you are. Yeah. So life happened, and then one thing led to another, and then that's why you're here.
And then that's how I ended up here. I don't want to bore the audience.
Yeah.
The 3 or 4 people.
Yes.
Listen to this podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank Samantha for coming on and giving us a one-on-one lesson. I asked her about how does she interview people, and yeah. So I need more. I need more. This is not what I do for a living. So
did she tell you how you did?
No.
Ugh.
Yeah. That's probably bad.
Yeah.
She better. She should have been.
I better not say anything.
I know. Dang it. Well, I'm rusty because it's been probably like 9 months since I haven't done anything.
That's true. That sounds like a lot of excuses.
Well, go watch Channel News every day. Samantha Mesa is on in the mornings and in the noon hours. And I want to thank her for making time for us. People are busy, man. And when they're able to make time, we really appreciate it because that's how we continue this fun podcast. You love it.
It's so much fun.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us on season 5. We're past the pandemic. 2023.
Is this the outro?
No, this is the intro.
Oh, okay. It sounds like you're saying bye.
Oh, no. No, I wasn't. I'm saying we're past the pandemic.
Okay.
Now it's new season 5. We're still trucking along. We're going to keep doing it and see what happens. So here's Samantha Mesa on the Abner Martinez podcast.
Thanks again for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you for being here. I know you're super busy, so I'm very grateful and appreciative of people making time and helping us do this.
Well, it's a two-way street, right? Because you helped me get your message out to our viewers, and I feel like that's what community is about. We leverage each other, we collaborate, and so I'm really happy. I had so much fun when you were on the show, and it felt like we were just a part of combined good forces.
So. But you have this daily, like you have people daily, and it's how do you keep up with that pace? I mean, it's a fast-paced job.
Yeah,
Your
it
job
is very fast-paced, and I think it's kind of how my brain works. So this is a job that's it fits like a glove. Because I love meeting different people. I love hearing their different stories. I'm a people person. Like I get energy off of good conversation.
Yeah.
And I thrive off of connecting our communities in all the diverse layers of us. So to me, that's a dream.
Yeah.
Like I genuinely love just connecting with different.
Do you like the
people
pressure? Because
the pressure definitely. Go ahead.
No, when you invited us to come, I've never been in a set like that, and then everything is sit here, and then you came and gracefully joined, and welcomed us, and then somebody moved us to another room, and then you see people counting down, and then so it's
constant.
Everything is like to the
by the
T.
second.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like? Is that part of the adrenaline?
Oh, for sure. I love how it's constantly moving, and you have to be focused and present and like on point the whole way through. And then, as you learn and as you kind of find your rhythm, you learn how to move through mistakes.
Yeah.
It's live TV. It's going to happen.
Yes.
And so I just I love live TV because it's be you, be you, be fully present. Give what's in front of you, which is going to change in the next hour.
Yeah.
That's the way news is. And I love just being like zoned in, like we're here, we're making eye contact, we're sharing energies, we're talking about something very important to the community. And it's fun. It's definitely an adrenaline. You have to balance that. But that's where, the end of my day, I try to do something like a physical release with exercise, or I try to read a book I'm really into, or I work on my Spanish.
Yeah. Do you have any like bloopers that go viral? I've seen, those are.
Oh my gosh. Endless. I've been doing this like 9 years now. Oh, there's plenty of bloopers.
Yeah.
I haven't kept track of them all, but every day, I feel like there's a blooper every day because we're just people.
Yeah.
And
so you've been in a lot of places. That's one of the key questions that I wanted to ask you. Like, you've been an anchor and reporter in New York, in Texas, and then you're originally from Denver, but what landed you in Iowa? What made you decide Iowa?
Yeah, there's a couple things. So when the station I was at before here was on the Texas-Mexico border, way down south in Brownsville area, and it was in smack middle of the pandemic.
Okay.
And so I was coming to the end of my contract, and honestly, like it's a heavy circumstance what led me to Des Moines, but I think a lot of people understand that at where we're at in life with the pandemic. I lost some colleagues from COVID. I mean, there were people passing away around me from sickness. And so our team was just whittling down. And I was able to keep working. I kept on telling myself, like, at that last station is a CBS station. And I was like, gosh, every day I wake up, I'm like, I'm alive.
Yes.
I'm physically able to work. I haven't gotten COVID. And I'm like, just keep going. And so for a good stretch, it was like at least 6 months plus when we were all just in the thick of it. We had lockdowns, curfews overnight. I got pulled over so many times going to work in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And the police were like, why are you out on the road? Nobody's out to be allowed. Nobody's allowed to be out. So then I'd just be like, I'm going to work, turn your TV on at 5 and you'll see me.
Oh, wow.
But, we had the FEMA, the release papers to say that I am an essential worker. And so that was a wild time, very isolating. And so
that's scary to cover the pandemic.
Yes, because when you think back to that time, and I know a lot of people have been burnt out on the news because they just can't take the heaviness of it, especially the pandemic for a stretch. All I was reporting was how many people have gotten sick, how many people have died, infection rates, people losing their jobs, businesses dying. I mean, it was like for months just a cycle of how do you still have compassion reporting the news, and how do you get people to turn on their TVs, because we're ultimately just trying to help us all get through.
Right.
So that was a brutal stretch. And when my contract was coming up, I had a death in my family, and it was devastating. It was exhausting. It felt like this big hole in my heart that I was like, I just need to be physically closer to family right now. And I don't know what the future holds, but that's the pull that I feel that I cannot ignore. And I have 2 brothers. I'm from a family of 8, third oldest, so lots of siblings. I have 2 brothers, one older and one younger, who moved to Minneapolis and started families there. They went there for work as well.
I see. And
so they had, started their families, had some kids. So I'm like, I'm a tia for the first time, and I'm not even anywhere near these kids.
I see.
And so I moved. I started looking for a job, started, just kind of poking around the country, as reporters do when your contracts come up. And Des Moines came across my radar. And I had an acquaintance from New York where I had worked years back. And I reached out to her and I was like, so there's a job open and I'm in the runnings for it. What do you think of Des Moines? And I'm like, that's a driving distance from my brothers. So that's going to be some peace of mind. And it's also a position that's the next step in my career. And she was like, well, the winters are horrible.
Yes.
But Des Moines is great.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
I was like, so when I accepted the job, I was like, I'm doing this. And so it was a combination of, really excited for this next step in my career, which you really need to be invested in for this line of work to move across the country.
Right.
And so I still believed in the craft, and I'm like, okay, I think I align with the station. And I've heard good things about the city. And then I was like, okay, I'm a drive away from my nieces and nephews, and my brothers are there, and you don't get time back.
Yeah, and you somehow found on your research that you have some Iowa roots.
Yeah,
you have some French.
This is crazy.
Irish.
Yeah, so I knew on both sides of my family. My mom, she is her father was raised in Long Beach. His family's from Mexico, and then my mom was raised in Long Beach, and then she has some French in her family too. My dad's family is a mix. What I know is Irish, but I also know his dad was raised in Algeria. So we're a swirl. I guess you say we're very American.
Yes,
lots of mixed cultures.
Yes. So I know that you said you were working on your Spanish.
Not confident enough.
Yes, well, and I wanted to kind of talk about this because I have children, and they don't speak Spanish, and then my wife and I we talk about it's not that easy to just assume that just because you're Spanish speaking, and then you have kids, especially in this country, that they're gonna speak Spanish.
Yeah.
So we decided not to put pressure on ourselves. We're like, we're not, that's okay if they don't speak Spanish for now, and then they can learn it. And do you feel pressure? Where's your Spanish at? Do you feel pressure that you need to speak Spanish?
I do feel, now it's more like pressure from myself, because I do feel like it's a missing part of my identity.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot I do miss out on when my bilingual friends are having a convo and I'm trying to follow.
Yeah.
And maybe I can understand. That's really where I'm at. I can understand for the most part. And then speaking it, challenge for me, what I get really frustrated at myself with is that when you're learning a language, like past your childhood, you go back to sounding like a child. It's like, I went to an intensive, like a Spanish institute in my college years. And at one point, me and this cohort of other students were like, what do we actually sound like to our teachers? I mean, they're like, are we just full on baby jumbo?
Yeah,
and I'm like,
could be.
Yeah.
Like toddlers.
But Spanish, or learning a language, I think it's really, for Spanish, and being Hispanic, Latino is like, it's a part of identity and keeping our connection to our roots. And then I think like learning a language, though, it comes from a place of curiosity and wanting to just learn deeper, something that you care about. You
right.
want to be a part of it. You want to understand it. So I mean, that's natural because it's a part of my heritage. My mom definitely wishes she kept her Spanish because she was raised bilingual growing up. But then when she moved to Colorado and raised my family,
right,
she would only get mad at us in Spanish.
Right, only scream when it's when they're mad when it's Spanish only,
right? Or when they say your full name.
Yeah, and I kind of appreciate that. When I was reading about you and doing a little research, you said that it was a piece for the state fair, and you said that you found out that you had French and Irish, and I think that a lot of people don't take time to look back and realize that everybody migrated here at one point or another. And I think it's very healthy for people to do that.
Yes.
What do you think?
Absolutely. I think you understand who you are when you understand where you come from. And you made me just think of two things. Being multicultural and having just really trying to understand your identity, your roots, and trying to celebrate it and really like appreciate the cultures you come from. I think that's definitely rare these days because our world moves so fast.
Yeah.
And I thought of something when you were, thinking of speaking Spanish and why is it important? Something deeper that's not even, it's not something I went through, but my grandfather experienced it in Long Beach. He was only child. His parents only spoke Spanish. And he was that generation going to Catholic school where the nuns would beat him when he spoke Spanish.
Oh, wow.
And so he got intimidated out of speaking Spanish in public.
Right.
But he had to be his parents' translator.
Yes.
He was a kid.
Yes.
So that is conflicting dynamics in home. You're your parents' link to adapting to this country you've come to.
Right.
And then you go to school and you got to work on that English and you cannot miss a beat.
Right.
You get beat.
Yes.
So that's something I think it's very close to my heart for that reason, among others. But I think of my grandfather being shamed out of speaking Spanish or even just afraid to. And yet he didn't judge his parents. You know, he is just a kid navigating a lot of tensions. And so for me, learning Spanish, it almost makes me feel like this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that the lack of knowledge or the lack of acknowledgement of, where you come from, it kind of creates that tribal territorial kind of, mentality of, this is my land and, you can't come here or.
It's very small-minded.
Yeah. And
it's based out of fear.
Right.
And power dynamics.
Yeah. I would be, for me, I'm from Guatemala and I'm on my mom's side. She doesn't know who her dad was. And then on my dad's side, he was born out of wedlock, so like out of an affair. So like that's kind of where my like history kind of stops, because they're like, okay, this was my dad. But some people here in this country, there's more. You can trace it deeper back into a couple 100 years, 300 years, and I think it would be helpful for people to do that, just to kind of reconnect with those people that came from Europe, because European Americans, African Americans, Latino, Latin Americans. So I don't know. It was just like when I was looking, into you, it just made me feel really. I appreciated that you like went back and took your time to look and see what your roots are from and stuff like that.
Yeah, when I found my family had met up in Oslo, so I was like, what?
You met with them? You met with some...
I haven't met them yet. If they hear this, I'm looking for you. Hit me up. What? I'm on TV. Just Facebook me.
What about journalism? I wanted to talk a little bit about that, obviously. But you were in the Middle East for a little bit. How was that experience like?
It was really incredible. It was crazy. I had the timing of it was just kind of meant to be. I mean, timing is everything.
Right.
And I was set to study abroad in Tunisia, North Africa, and 2 weeks before, this is a country that flies under the radar, like Mediterranean, almost Greek, and then they got, Arabic and North African influences. Absolutely beautiful country. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, I'm going to get close to Algeria where my grandfather was raised. I'm like, I'm going to understand another side of me.
Yeah.
And nope. It was 2 weeks before I left for the program, the Jasmine Revolution, the Arab Spring Revolution.
Yes.
Literally ignited. I mean, it was one of the heaviest news headlines in a while, because a man set himself on fire.
Yeah.
And because of economic desperation, the whole area he was in, it's just the region reached a breaking point. And so riots break out. The country just pretty much self-destructs. And I'm like, oh,
you're a student. You're a student still.
Yeah, I was 23, 24.
Oh, wow.
And a non-traditional college student, mid-20s. And I was like, wow, Tunisia's under a state of emergency. What do I do right now? And so my study abroad, School for International Training, they're like, we are rerouting you to Morocco. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, they're kind of going through the protests too, but they're safer. And we got a host family for you. Safer. And I was like, okay. So you mean there's not planes in the air shooting down civilians? Like that's what was going on. Yeah. And so, It was definitely a wild ride at that time. This was just a really pivotal time in my life for various reasons. At that moment, like my dad, he was going through stage 4 prostate cancer, inoperable. And so he was at the end of his battle. He lost his battle, and he passed away in that August of 2010. And then the Arab Spring, as I'm like, I decided, I'm going to follow through with my study abroad because I was like, there's so much I don't know about my dad's family. I really need to get to that region and learn. And so December, these protests light up, and then I get rerouted to Morocco. So I go through the study abroad plans. And I spent a couple months in Morocco and learned Arabic, studied Arabic, and then took other classes on the history of the region, the politics. It was really an immersive experience of be in the culture, speak the language, and learn our history. So that was a couple intensive months. And then once the state of emergency in Tunisia lifted, our group decided, okay, we're going to go to Tunisia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you still went back to Tunisia?
I still went.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then when we got there, it was very militarized. There were kind of like, the prison, the barbed wire you see on a prison. I mean, that was massive everywhere.
Yeah.
Just guarding roads, buildings. The downtown that was close to the suburbs we were living in with our host families. Every other week, it was torn apart by riots. And then they try to rebuild.
Did that make an impact on you as do you look back, how did that impact your career?
Well, it impacted my career in some really deep ways in that intention. Intention on, you really have to be, there's a courage that comes with the job, that you have to be okay with being in dangerous situations. And then you have to really care to get to the people whose voices need to be heard. And then you've got to be very quick and savvy to get to leadership. So you're connector between everyday people and then the decision makers. So that's a different kind of hustle that you've got to be very quick thinking.
I see.
And with correspondence, I mean, that was an experience pretty much being an international correspondent. And it showed me, you've really got to have some grit and focus. And no matter what the circumstance is, if you're on the front lines of a war zone, that's the assignment.
Right.
And if you're, in stages of a country building a democracy for the first time, as was Tunisia when I was there, I was spending my time interviewing the women that were building a democracy for the first time, and they were throwing around all these terms I had never heard before. And for me, I was just like, you talk, and I'm just going to document it and put together my, paper at the end of this study abroad assignment. And it ended up being, my project was women's voices will be heard, the women of the Jasmine Revolution. And so it really organically just came together. And that's how news is. You go where the story is.
Yes. It's just the story found you this time.
I got thrust into it. And I was like, most people say, I'm going to study abroad and have croissants.
Yes.
Learn Francais.
Yeah.
That was not me.
You've covered the opioid pandemic,
in New York, I covered that. Yeah.
So what have you covered that just stuck with you? What's something that
There's a lot. I will say, recently on the Texas-Mexico border, I did a story on the HIV/AIDS epidemic there. And it was very eye-opening in the Hispanic community because there's a really high rate of transmission with men.
Okay.
So there's this taboo around sexual health, bigger picture, and how it spirals into killing people. And it's taboo around being Hispanic and Catholicism, and it's one of those topics that's loaded with shame
Yes.
and covering up, pretending everything's fine.
Yeah.
But
They still handle it like if it was the 80s.
yeah.
When it was very like.
And my report there, I spoke with a young man that was going through his treatment and trying to just find a rhythm in life to live with it.
Mm-hmm.
And he just broke down crying. And he was just like, look, I've been through some really tough stuff, as a lot of teens have. And he's like, I got a lot of trauma just locked up in my body. And the fact that I can't talk about this, and there's only one resource center in this whole border region that will be there for me and help me.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm breaking down. And so he shared his story, very young guy in his 20s. And it was one of those things where I just saw like the resource center be such a source of compassion and really like trying to find solutions for him, you know, medical treatment, whatnot. But more than anything, they just kind of came alongside him and they're like, we see you. We're not going to judge you. We'll be here whatever you need. You tell us. And we want to try to get you through this. And that I learned was the reality for so many men. I mean, they considered it a pandemic or that was the health crisis there before COVID. And so before COVID hit, that was the one that was killing men at crazy rates.
How do you keep your objective kind of without becoming an activist, right? Because is there a line where you have to be, as a journalist, you have to be neutral, you have to be that must be difficult because you're a person that, you know, wants to promote, you know, community and goodness and all that stuff. Have you found yourself in a little bit of hot waters for your approach, especially right here in, you know, Channel 5, at least what we've seen? Like you're pushing a lot of community, people of color, a lot of is there
marginalized,
like how
underrepresented. I'm
it's
pushing
tough.
the boundaries.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. That's pretty much what I'm doing.
Pretend
Because in my mind, I'm like, you're like, we all deserve a voice,
Yeah.
especially if we've been marginalized.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think that's a daily challenge that every journalist ethically should hold themselves to. And it's not easy. And I know a lot of journalists that are so devoted to this craft, my mentor being one of them. Rosa Flores, she's a correspondent for CNN.
Okay.
And she's someone that I look to as just this constant, steady, get all sides, give context. There's always things to consider. There's multiple factors. There's different people at play. And so, life is complicated. And I think you have to see it as there's more to it than a perspective or my emotions connected to a story. I think to have a boundary is really important for me, a healthy boundary that I don't get consumed by a news story, and really just be like, okay, but are we giving the full picture?
Yeah.
And that's the hustle. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you have to find a balance to give people a safe space to be vulnerable and tell you what they're really going through when you're trying to put a face to a problem. And then you also have to be very knowledgeable, quick, a good listener. And you got to sometimes call people out when it comes to leadership.
Yeah.
It's just about wanting to be a true educator,
right,
and connector.
Yeah, because I mean, at one point, journalism was being attacked, right? So there's some players in the cable news that have kind of pushed, you know, I guess society. You know, if you want to confirm your thoughts, you can watch Fox or MSNBC, and they'll reaffirm that the way you think. And journalists like yourself, you guys are objective and in the middle. What's your opinion about that? About the some of the cable news that have kind of become more of bullhorns for each party, each side.
Think politics in our country has become so polarized, and unfortunately, we've all seen it. Stories becoming clickbait, and things go viral, and it creates groupthink and more prejudice, affirming assumptions and stereotypes, and then having justification to other someone, and then treat them so.
Yes.
And that the division it feeds into people's assumption that I should be afraid of you because you're different from me, and I need to protect myself.
Right.
With journalism, I mean, that's very frustrating to see how news, different outlets have done that at times. It's just kind of it's puts us all in check.
Yeah.
Like, what's your intention behind this?
Yeah.
Because a journalist is to do the work. A family at home or a person watching their TV does not have the resources, the time, the connections to do to help us find solutions, get to the root of a problem, really understand it, and then be like, so now what? So if you take, for me, I see it, when I take journalism at that approach, it's about understanding, it's about unpacking, and then I don't want to just leave you with a problem. I want to find the people that maybe have an idea, a solution, or are doing something to do something about what we're going through, because we don't want to be stuck. Nobody wants that.
And because we're far away from the Walter Cronkite era, right? Where, like, anchors, where anchors were looked at, with a standard of now, I think they've made damage, to your profession, where, it's more of an opinion now and not fact reporting. But, is local news easier to kind of stay more objective and because the national news, I'm assuming these guys have like pressure from their bosses to be crazy and
it depends on the
push an agenda, maybe.
Yeah, it depends on the network. For the national, I think. Well, I enjoy local news. I really feel a connection to local news because I feel like for me, I love community. I love being able to try, get to know the people where I'm at. I don't have to go too far, and I can just make it my home, explore what's right in front of me, and really take my time to understand, Des Moines is what it is right now, and surrounding suburbs. It's the national and then local come with very different grinds because you go national and the world is your oyster, but you're also going to be flying by the seat of your pants, and you can be pivoted on a story if breaking news happens and you were in Indiana, reporting on a community, a feature there that you worked on, and you flew in and you're meeting with these people, but then a shooting happens in Denver,
then that's
people die, you go, and you have to be ready for that. So it's you have to have very high capacity to be around trauma, people's best and their worst days. And you have to be just ready to flip the switch and then go live.
I think a lot of it, you said something earlier, was like very clickbait kind of, they keep up with who gets the most. I was following something, or I ran into this page. It's an organization, it's called Start With Us.
Oh, yeah.
Called?
Yes.
Starts with Us, I think it's called. Where they're doing studies and they're, kind of exposing a little bit the medias or, that are using the hyper partisan
agenda
candidates, and because they get more clicks, and the bipartisan people that are trying to work together to get things moving forward, they don't get as many exposure because Margaret Taylor Greene gets all the, a lot of the
it's a business.
Yeah. So it's which affects you a little bit, doesn't it? Because or the profession where the pressure of like, who should we cover? Where are we gonna get the most clicks? Where are we gonna get?
We don't think about clicks in as a newsroom. We look at impact. How many people does this impact? What is the impact? We want to devote our coverage to what matters to you, the viewer. And, if there's policy changes that are going to happen, a bill that's going to get signed, a protest, we want to be there and we want to let you know about it. We're also going to cover when the price of gas goes up. We're also going to cover a baby toy recall for your little one. We're also going to cover, your car, a recall on your car. It's about keeping you safe, protecting your money, saving your money, and then inspiring you, bringing you joy for the day.
How do you keep your emotions in check? Because some stuff that you report must be something that like you're probably not agreeing with or against or something, or you have an opinion of. How do you do that? How do you like?
Yeah, that's definitely. I feel like that's just kind of a everyday being human practice. I've never met a journalist that didn't have a day that was just heavy on their heart, because we've all had to cover the same types of stories. We've all been in levels of other people's trauma at some point. A woman I admire, she's working in DC as an anchor and reporter now. If she's listening, her name is Deborah Alfarone, and she gave a really good piece of advice. She's a professional serial mentor to other women in broadcast. Okay. And she said, when you get to the station, check your emotions at the door. Not meaning don't be a robot, because you have to still have empathy and make people feel safe to share their stories with you. But what she was saying is, she was like, this is not about you. So if you get triggered by something at work, or a story makes you feel just like, oh my God, I can't handle this. She just was like, this is just about your emotional management. And she's like, you will do yourself and your viewers a service that way. Because breathe. It's like kind of the practice of yoga, being just centered and being in touch with your body. So for me, I've been in enough newsrooms to really observe who handles stress, pressure, really sad stories well. And I've kind of just had, I guess, a toolkit of, I liked that. I liked how they handled this. I liked how they handled that. And so for me, I really love the rhythm of my work right now. I get to just be a community builder, connecting us. And then when I am spent at the end of the day, or if it's a bad week, or, you just have, the news is so heavy. I'm so tired of saying it. Yeah. Then I'm like, okay, it's time for me to take care of my body, because my body holds tension too. And sometimes you feel like you just carried the weight of the world. You literally just said every sad thing happening in the world. Yes. Then it's like, okay, it's time for yoga. It's time for reading. It's time for being around people I love. It's time to not think about anything. It's time to watch comedy. It's time to go watch live music. Yeah. It's time to go to salsa club.
So you gotta disconnect from the job.
You have to have a self-care routine.
Take us a little bit, and this is picking your brain for us too.
That's fun.
You're the professional, and so I have a few questions about this. Inside what's the decision making like? So there's your title is the anchor. Is there an editor? Is there you guys get together and think about which, or somebody just dictates these are the stories, or do you have a say in it?
So I'll give you the rhythm of my day. When I get into the newsroom, I've gotten already a Teams message at 2 a.m. from our producers. We have overnight producers. They come in around 9, 10, depending. There's 2 of them as of right now. Usually morning shows have 2 to 3 producers. Okay. And they come through. They take the baton basically from Nightside.
I see.
The last show is at 10, so they are checking what were the top headlines, what do we need to ask questions on. Sometimes there's a fire, sometimes there's a shooting overnight. They're doing that. So they're building a 2-hour show all through the night. So by the time I wake up, they've pretty much told me, we're having you do this, and da-da-da-da-da.
I see.
So I get into the newsroom, and it's go, go, go from the time I get in there till when I'm walking out. And we have me and my co-anchor, and then we have a meteorologist. He's been working for hours on the weather by the time I get there. And then we have a production crew that is testing mics. Everybody does so much behind the scenes. You saw.
Yes.
So it's a small but mighty crew. In the newsroom, there's 2 to 3 producers and then 2 anchors, and we're just reviewing scripts, fact-checking, making sure spelling is all good. And then if there's any developing news, we're trying to update. And it's constant prep before a 2-hour live show. Yes. And so they have made a lot of judgment calls, but then they also look to us, the anchors, to be like, wait a second, what about this? What about that? Have you checked on this? Yeah. And so they're also taking notes on any questions we have. And they're going to be following up with fire department, police, as the show goes on.
Right.
So it's a constant efforting.
Yeah.
And so then 5 to 7, our show's live. Sometimes breaking news comes in and we got to adapt. And our producers are super sharp on giving us a heads up when we have a new read coming in and we can review it. And then through the show, we're a fluid team. The show lives and breathes. So if there's something that we see that we're like, we could do that better, that didn't quite work right, or have this question, we should, next time we air this story, let's add this detail to it. We're constantly.
So it's always in getting.
It's a work and flow.
Yes.
And then we update social media at the same time. So it's like, it's great for an ADD brain.
Yeah.
You're just like,
yes.
And then after the show, we have Good Morning America airs after us. And then we pop in 7:25, 7:55, 8:25, 8:55, 4 different cut-ins that we pop into the network.
Okay.
And we give your local news update.
I see.
And so by 9:30, then we have a staff meeting. The reporters for the day are in, more editorial staff, assignment editor is in. We got our web team in. And so then we all get together, and it's kind of, you relay what happened on the morning show, what should be covered for the day. You decide what stories are going to be covered for the reporters. And then I get ready for round 2, which is the midday. And that's when I get ready for people like you to come through.
I see.
Yeah, so then I work with our producer to build the midday. And that's when I'm like, okay, I scheduled so-and-so for today. I'm going to write how I want that segment to go. And then they build the follow-up, the carryover of news. What's new since the morning. Yeah, so
it's like a whole
constant.
Every day.
Yeah.
Is there stories that you're like, I don't want to cover this?
Yeah. There's stories that are so depressing or like graphic that you're just like, I don't want to talk about this. This is a horrible thing that happened and I have to say it.
Yes.
So yeah, there's stories that I'm just like, right now I'm just going to tune out. I'm like, you have to kind of remember your why.
Yeah.
Which is protecting, being an advocate. Sometimes that's really heavy.
Yeah. So when Instagram came out, like, I don't know when, but I remember it was like, I think 2012 when I started to hear about it. I'm sure it came out before that, but I was like, I bet photographers hate this app because, because filters and stuff. And I'm like, so much work a photographer went through, to get the
art
education.
Of the real moment.
Right. And then, so the same question to you with like, even people like me, like nowadays you can have your own, like you can be your own broadcaster, right? Like people go live and, people have made careers out of, creating their own channel and stuff like that. How does that feel? How do you
influencer culture?
Yes. How do you feel about that?
You're ruining us.
Yes.
Go away.
Yeah. I mean, you put in the work. You went to school. Went to all this.
I'll say pay my student loans and we'll call it good. Do you just pay off my loans? And then I'll be like, oh, maybe that's my next thing. I'll be an influencer. Yeah. And I'll be like, dang, this is kush.
This is good. Anchor is your second job.
Yeah.
And this is but it's true, right? I mean, there's this thing where you put in the work, you go to school, you get the degree, and you go through all the traditional channels. And nowadays, society is kind of
YouTube editorial tutorial, and you're like, okay, I got this.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
YouTube University or something.
It was YouTube when I was going to college.
Yes. So we're in a different age.
It is.
So
it's
how do you or do you have an opinion on that as far as like how things are just changing, ever changing? It's never.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think I definitely am guilty of just going down the rabbit hole of social media videos. I don't have TikTok for that reason. Goodbye to my time management after that. I can't do it. Instagram is already enough of a black hole for me. But I think I saw something interesting the other day. It was a news report on marketing, like business marketing class, but they're teaching these college students how to build a social following. They're teaching them how to do videos. And I'm like, you're going to pay like a college credit for that? But there's like a few students on this campus. They have millions of followers combined. And the course is basically an example of what do people care about now? What is the logic behind social media and making it work for your brand? That is the world we're living in. So I kind of, if I look at my timeline when we're talking social media and the rise of this influencer culture,
right?
I try to, my feed is mostly mindset, it's fitness, it's animals. I love dogs. Yes. And then it's a lot of reporters that I really respect, but then it's also travel sites. And I love me some beauty products, so I'm going to watch people do tutorials all the time.
Yes.
And that's enough already. That's already a lot of constant just images, messaging. For me, I just kind of have to cut it off at a point because I don't think it's just too much for my soul. Yes. At the end of the day, it's like my heart, my soul. It's like I have a short attention span already, but then I need like substance in my life. You know? And so I guess I think it just takes, you need a cutoff point. Right. And then you need be intentional about why you're going to social apps. What are you going for? Is it doing anything for you, or are you feeling low about yourself? Are you wanting all the products out there? It's like comparison is really easy on social media. So for me, I can appreciate it for what it does for me. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot look at my phone anymore today.
Yes. So I have a huge appreciation for journalism. And I think that if I was to ever go back in time and choose a career and have the ability to go, and educate myself, which is never too late, but I would choose the journalism path. What advice would you give to young people that are thinking about journalism?
I think being passionate about caring and telling true stories. Don't make it something you think it is. Let the story tell itself. Ask good questions. Listen. Listen and respond out of that. Research. So that you're knowledgeable, you're not going in blind, and then just care to make a difference and have fun. Storytelling it's such an art, and it's just who we are.
Right.
Everybody loves a good story. And don't you love telling a good story? Don't you love to see people's reactions, when you kind of you grab them more than a TikTok video?
Yes. Do you have any bucket list type of person that you would dream of love to interview?
Yeah. I was raised on Oprah, and she's the master interviewer. She influenced me so much when I was a kid, and I know you don't hear many kids say that. My mom was watching Oprah. It's why would her daughter care, But she had such a gift of like a social chameleon. She could read people, and she could be right there with them wherever they're at.
Right.
And she came across as she's known you forever, no matter who you are. And I think I would just interview her and just pick her brain. I mean, there's no question she hasn't been asked.
Right.
But she just influenced me so much, and I have so much respect for a lot of the work that she did, that I think I would just pick her brain as so what, looking back, what do you think of everything you've done? Do you still feel curious? Is there still stories you want to tell? Is there still people you want to meet? She's the queen of the media world.
Yeah.
So I would be curious, because sometimes, sometimes journalism makes you feel oh my gosh, I can't do another day. This was too heavy. It was too, I haven't slept.
Yeah.
My heart is heavy. My brain is fried. But I got to get up and do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I know she went through some of those days. And I guess I would just want to be do you still have a why?
Yeah.
When you look back, you've done it all. Do you feel like there's still more? Or are you just kind of relishing in the way your life is? Do you still want to create,
Yes.
Because I definitely have this, I just don't feel like I'm going to be done anytime soon. I'm going to keep pushing on this path with storytelling. Because it feeds this part of me that just won't stop.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's definitely necessary to have a degree of that to be in journalism.
Right.
Also, I would love to meet Rihanna. I'm a big Rihanna fan.
Rihanna,
but
fan?
I think she's so fire. I mean, she is so strong in who she is, and that's a grind. She just pushed in her career, performing in front of millions of people, and now she's taking a break for family. And I would love to pick her brain on like, how did you stay solid in you? As crazy as this world is, she's such a force, powerful, but she's so talented.
Right.
So hardworking.
I just think anybody that gets to whatever goal that they set themselves to, you have to respect that. Almost nobody, no matter who it is. Yeah. Because it's like, it's not easy to get to where some of us like wish and dream and like visualize, I wish, right? And then most of us, that's where it stops. Yeah. And then there's rare people that really go through the entire process of failing and going, getting no's, eventually getting there. It's just that to me is like respectful, to be like, hey, that person put in the work. That's why they're there,
Yeah, and there's a lot you don't see that was not so pretty.
Right.
Getting there. There you have. I'm sure anybody that I respect who's at a place that looks like it's all just amazing. You ask them, have you ever wanted to quit? And they just go, have I? Every day, And I think you've got to believe in it. And then sometimes you don't have the choice to quit. Sometimes quitting is not an option because you carry the weight of your family behind you.
Yes.
Or if you quit, then what? You don't have the luxury of quitting sometimes.
Give me some tips. So a lot of people ask me the same question when I invite them to do the podcast, and they're like, send me questions.
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about? And I don't know how to, do that because, my brain just kind of, I would be very nervous if I had questions here and I would have to be looking down. If I lose.
You want to be focused.
Yes.
You want to be
yes.
You want the chemistry to happen.
Yes. And then, so I've gotten better at not asking questions like in circles. Like in other podcasts, I would go around and then like eventually ask the question. So I want to get better at asking the questions quicker. But like, give me some tips. Like, how do you prepare for an interview and to get what you want from your subject?
Start with why the person's coming on.
Okay.
There's got to be one takeaway at least that what's the reason you want them on.
Yeah.
Just start with that. And then when I am, if I'm getting ready for someone coming onto the show and I'm like, okay, I know this is the event or whatever, or this is the work they do that I want to talk to them about. And then I'm like, well, what else are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
And I don't want it to be boxed, because if I write down questions and the conversation organically goes in a different direction, then it's fine. Like maybe there's some questions I'm going to be like, never mind. But I research that person and almost like I'm getting to know them and their background.
Right.
So you did some research on me and it made for a really easy conversation. And that's a base. That is a background that so many people can relate to or take inspiration from. Or just even be like, wow, I learned something new today.
Yeah.
And then, so you got to, I would say, get to know the person, know their background very well. Questions will come from that. And if you've got a reason to begin with, let the conversation flow around that.
Yeah. So I've been doing Zoom calls. I had a couple of Zoom calls, and then I'm going to do interviews with them. And I just did one, and it felt like I had more ammo, I guess, to questions. So maybe add a Zoom, because I just can't see myself writing questions.
I
feel like I'm going to fail.
Forget. I do it because I'm like, I just can't forget this one question.
This one point, yes.
Yeah. And you have the space to, if you have notes, to look down and it's not going to just kill the momentum of the conversation. Yeah. For me, I have kind of like monkey brain where I'll be like, wait, you just made me think of something. What did you just make me think of?
Yeah.
I'm like, I should have written that down,
Yeah.
Because I think good conversation is the best, when we're just vibing and it flows organically. But that came with preparation on your part.
Right. I'm afraid that if I look down, I will lose
side of the conversation, and then by the time I look up, I can't catch up with where you were. You know what I mean?
We'll just say that, and then we'll laugh about it, and then we'll move on. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
Where were we? And I'll be like, I don't know, but here we are now.
Have you talked to somebody that you didn't want to talk to, or that you didn't want to interview?
Not in a while. I think I'm in a really good place right now. That I just seek out people that I'm like, I want to connect with.
Right. Yeah.
I definitely have had my share, though. I've had to cover some really ugly situations, be it from sometimes like news of the day, the crime, and like the really bad things that happen in the community, when someone winds up in jail, or you have to follow their court case, or you got to talk to a corrupt politician, or, somebody who's being called out for ripping the community through their just taking advantage of their leadership role. Those are not fun interviews. When you have to like call people out on corruption, then you're just like, you don't like me right now. You're not going to want to talk to me. Guess what? I don't want to talk to you either.
But here's the question. Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of some of the people that are in leadership roles, they're being paid on tax dollars. They're a public servant. They were elected.
Right.
So it's like, comes with the territory. You got to answer to the community you serve. So those are not fun.
So nowadays, women anchors are more and more common, but it wasn't, right? This was a profession.
Back in Barbara Walters' day.
This was a profession that was dominated by men. What is your experience as a woman in this field?
It's different depending on where you go, because the U.S. is different from state to state. Cities are different. Diverse or not, some cities are back in time in how they treat women, and then some are a lot more progressive. So it's just varied between starting out in Corpus Christi, Texas. That was an NBC affiliate, and then I went up to ABC Fox affiliate in Rochester, New York, and then the Harlingen-Brownsville border on Texas-Mexico border. So every area has different gender dynamics given the area. And so a newsroom, I think every newsroom is different too. It's a crazy fast-paced business. I think for me, the expectation has always been, you got to hustle, woman or man. You got to have the grit and the focus. And the more I got into anchoring, the more my image became a focal point. And I had then I started to get comments. Then I start to, my appearance would be picked at. And then you see another side to the job. You're like, oh my gosh, when I'm on TV all the time, I'm going to get scrutinized.
Yes.
And I think that just comes with being in the public eye, which is, you gave the example of social media influencers. They're experiencing it too. It's not good for your mental health.
Right.
So I would say that broadly speaking, I've had to really work on just being secure with myself.
Right.
And I think early on in my career, I was in a newsroom that I heard the women I work with, they'd really get torn up about a viewer commenting on their lipstick, criticizing it, or talking about their weight.
Right.
And they would really have to it shook them. And for me, I'm like, God, that's the least of my worries.
Yes.
I'm like, I can hairspray. I'm really not worried about what you think of my appearance. I'm just trying to hack this job,
Yeah.
But I made a decision. I was like, okay, if someone is going to pick at me for reasons related to being a woman, I will take it with a grain of salt. My goal is it only matters if it makes me better at my craft. And if, someone wants to uplift me in positive feedback and help me get better, I'll listen. Otherwise, I got to block it out.
Yes. Nowadays, it's lens for itself, right? You post something on Facebook, on Instagram, you're trying to promote your show, and then, you're kind of putting yourself out there for people to
every day
to their opinion. I used to fall for that a lot, as far as getting triggered and engaging in the discourse of, especially when Trump was a president, there was a lot of chaos in society.
Very
I think.
much.
But I've learned to just like not pay attention to it anymore.
Yeah. Good on you.
Yeah,
Aren't
more
you
more on
better for
the
it?
more on the comment side. But for you, is it is it discouraging or insulting that like instead of people focusing on your career and in your work, they comment on your looks and on your appearance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little disrespectful.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's kind of that's kind of what I was getting at with the question of the experience of in your.
No, it never feels good.
Mm-hmm.
It's a slimy feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also want to like for me, I love to be expressive in my womanhood
Mm-hmm.
and be feminine and dress in, clothes that really make me feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
And I like bright colors.
Mm-hmm.
I love fashion. I love feeling beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And when that gets twisted,
Mm-hmm.
it comes objectified
Mm-hmm.
or criticized like it's too much,
Mm-hmm.
that's when it's disappointing because I'm just being me. But that's where I think you kind of just need to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned it's a projection. It's a
Right.
reflection on what's going on in them. Has nothing
Yeah.
to do with me.
Yeah, yeah.
And as long as I feel good in my own skin and I'm confident in what I'm wearing, how I'm presenting myself, the rest is noise.
Yes.
Keep your good people close who see you.
Yeah. Well, on Channel 5, I've noticed that the team there is very diverse.
Yeah.
What's the mission of Channel 5? It looks like you guys are up to something. And I appreciate, not just because you had me, but when I was looking and you're just talking to anybody that's doing something positive and good in the community, you're having them come on and giving them a platform that, that you guys have a big platform. So what is the mission for Channel 5 as far as, your impact here, I guess, in the local?
I had, who said this to me? I think it was one of the leaders of Civic Music Association. And he said, I think he hit it dead on. And it just uplifted me so much. And I just felt like, man, you see me, you see our team.
Mm.
And he just said, you're making Des Moines a better place.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And a big part of that is representation.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And equity. Open the door to people who have been kept out.
Right. I want to kind of close on that a little bit, because if you look at Channel 5 and you look at the roster of anchors and reporters, and it is a reflection of society, and that's
This is Iowa.
Yeah.
This is Des Moines.
Yeah. So it's refreshing to see that, because with what's happening, the local legislation that's been passed, and it's demoralizing. But then you see organizations like Channel 5, and you see that there's an effort behind it too. So it's like it gives you energy, like gives you a little pump of energy. I was talking to
It's not over.
right.
Reminds you.
Yeah, so there's this big, this might be my last question, but there's this big like two forces almost, there's this DEI movement of people, leading the way to create more inclusivity and diversity, and then there's a force of not but the pushback.
Yeah.
How do you keep your energy like going? What drives you to? I mean, you connected with me and we set the date. I mean, you're doing the scheduling for this 5-minute, what keeps your energy going?
You.
Knowing that
The people, the
Mhm.
community. You
Mhm.
showed up.
Mhm.
You came through and you shared your work and your message.
Mhm.
That keeps the energy. It's like, it really does energize me. And it makes my wheels turn even more, because I
Mhm.
see the work that you do. You carved out time in your schedule. You responded to my message. And then you just you care.
Mhm.
You care about what you're doing. You care about the community, and
Mhm.
you made time to connect and
Mhm.
share that message with my show. And that energizes me. From the work you do to the other people I've been able to meet with now. And then there's a response, like after you post it to social, and then people are just, the response is really something.
Yes.
It is, I'm not from here, so I can't speak like much beyond this experience with the midday, but I'm getting a response from people that this is also something that they haven't seen in media. The representation, the vibrance, the collaboration, the variety of ways of seeing the world and doing things, and small businesses, the creativity and talent coming from mom and pop shops.
Right.
This month, a lot of women-owned businesses, but it doesn't stop there. It's just bit by bit. So I'm constantly in search of, I guess.
Yes.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
I would not change it for the world. I mean, there's this momentum building.
Yes.
And it happens.
It does feel that way, with when you look at your work here in Iowa up to this point. You've been here a year and a half?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years. So you guys are doing great work, and I thank you again for giving me time in your platform and Channel 5, and thank you for coming here and spending some time. So
I love it.
Hopefully we can talk sometime in the future.
Yes.
Catch up a little bit.
The more we create space like this, the more we're going to build momentum, and it's going to go beyond us, and then more people come through, and they have something to contribute.
Right.
That's how it works.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Samantha.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
There you have it. Samantha Mesa, Channel 5. Go check it out. They're doing good things. They're opening the doors to people that need some exposure, that need that limelight. Is that what it's called? Spotlight? Need a little spotlight, yeah.
You need a little promotion.
Yeah.
And hit up Samantha.
Yeah.
She's gonna.
You should do that for your goodbye tour.
My what?
Your goodbye tour.
I'm
as
not
a
doing.
DJ.
I'm not doing any of that shit.
Kenji was a DJ for 10, 12. How long were you a DJ for?
16 years.
16 years. It's the end of an era, Kenji.
It's a good end.
You're a local little celebrity. You don't want to. We should do a poll. Should Kenji do a goodbye gig? So, but people, please comment.
People don't give a shit, man. They don't. Nobody.
We'll
gives
see.
A shit.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'll be like, and 3 people are like,
we'll see. I think if we get 25, we get 50 people to comment and like, and you do one.
Sounds very pathetic. Sounds very pathetic. Any number under 1,000 is pathetic. Yeah. It's sad shit.
But you're saying that
it's gonna look very sad.
You're saying that nobody is gonna comment, or
I don't want to know. I just rather vanish.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to Samantha Mesa for making time for us. Look out for more episodes. Share, comment, message Kenji, and tell him that he should do a goodbye tour, club tour.
I'm gonna leave you on the red.
All right. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you soon.
Amplified.